If your customer-supplier relationship is broken, fix it. Some outsourcing contracts actually ensure poor performance. It's true. Service levels are too high, penalties drive overperformance in one area at the expense of another area, and governance structures look pretty on paper, but they create zero accountability. Couple these problems with attitudes of blame and superiority that block problem solving and open dialogues, and you've got a recipe for failure. Hi, I'm Jeanette Neiden, an expert on negotiating customer-supplier contracts. I've been writing, teaching, and working with companies to negotiate customer-supplier agreements for over 20 years. And more importantly, I've worked with both procurement and sales teams at a variety of companies in diverse industries. So here's the frustrating thing to me, and maybe this resonates with you too. People on both sides of buyer service provider relationships complain about their partners, but then they don't do anything about it. I sat stunned once through a QBR as an executive spent 45 minutes reading emails about the supplier's poor performance. The rest of us could only study the backs of our hands. I get it. The relationship can be better and the supplier can perform better, but why do we only complain? Why don't we change the relationship? And if we need to, change the contract too. I've puzzled over why companies don't act in the face of less than stellar performance in their customer supplier relationships. And then I had an epiphany. It's not all or nothing. See, people approach contracting like my grandmother taught me how to grow vegetables. There's only one way. Her way was a big vegetable patch, long rows of kale and carrots and lettuce and corn, long hours of weeding, fertilizing, and watering, then a rush to harvest the entire row at maturity, followed by processing, freezing, and canning. So when a friend described a completely different way to planting a garden in a foot by foot square idea, then I thought, that's not how you do it. And that's when it dawned on me. A lot of other business people also think about their relationships the way I thought about gardening, which is there's only one way to do it. See, we tend, all of us humans, to operate from one paradigm, and we tend to resist changing that paradigm. Negotiating a contract has its own paradigm, and we invest tons of time up front to get the contract in place. It's a headache, and we all want to get back to work. Once the relationship is in place, it just seems easier to accept the problems and complain about them. And when it's time to renegotiate, we often make some of the same mistakes. So we need to look at how we do contracts differently. And we can do things in small incremental changes. Make small but meaningful changes. So here's another option: incremental relationship and contract changes. Frustrated clients ask me where to start. So assuming that you have no policies or clauses that prevent contract modifications, I suggest three options that tend to provide both strategic and tactical benefits. So let's do the overview first, and then I'll get to each of the three in more detail. Here's how one of my clients changed their relationship. The buying company and the supplier both identified by working together what the problems in the relationship were using some diagnostic tools. They then set about changing the relationship one step at a time. They located to improve communication, they refreshed the KPIs to better track performance, and they started regular team meetings, including representatives from both companies at the same time. Those small adjustments drove improvements, and now their relationship is strong and they are renewing their contract for another several years. So here's my advice to you. First, KPIs. KPIs drive focus and behavior. So if you're not getting the results you want, look at your metrics. Also, look at the service levels associated with that metric. 100% might look good on paper, but provide no meaningful evaluation of the service provider's performance vis-a-vis the customer's end user. Second, accountability. Strive to have two people accountable for the same outcome, one from each company. This arrangement will inherently drive collaboration, creative problem solving, and a speedier approval process. Remember, the end user doesn't care about the distinction between the buying company and the supplier. The end user only cares about results. That means both companies are accountable for results. And third, governance meetings. For many relationships, this change may be the one high impact change that won't require any change to the contract itself. If there are problems, meetings should be frequent and focused on problem solving strategy and not on rehashing the history. What's done is done. Let's look forward and let's do it differently so that we can be successful. If your people don't see value in a QBR, and you can usually tell if they're postponed or poorly attended, change them. Provide a forum to step away from daily tasks to look at the relationship in a more strategic light, or even set aside 30% of the time to discuss strategy and forward thinking, the next rolling quarter or two problem solving. Here's the bottom line. If something's not working in your customer-supplier relationship, figure out a way to do things differently. So I'm doing that now with my own vegetable garden. I don't have to do it the way my grandmother taught me to do it. I'm doing it one little small square at a time. So I don't feel frustrated. In fact, I'm actually pretty happy, and I just pick a few vegetables at a time. So where will you start? I've introduced 3 places to change your customer-supplier relationship for the better. Where do you need to start to make improvements? And if you're not sure where to begin, reach out to me to schedule a free 1-hour strategy session. I'm sure I'm able to identify a great place for you to make a small incremental change to improve your customer-supplier relationship.